What is the probability that two people in your class have a birthday on the same month and day? Most people guess that the probability is pretty low. In fact, in a class of 23, the probability is about 50%. In larger classes, the probability is even higher. When we misestimate the probability of an event by a huge margin, we are committing probability error. Humans are notoriously poor at determining probability. We are inclined to believe that coincidences must have paranormal causes when actually they are consistent with probability. For example, you are thinking of a friend whom you haven't seen for a year when the phone rings and it's your friend on the other line. Are you a psychic? Or is it just a coincidence? You probably thought of your friend hundreds or even thousands of times over the course of a year without receiving a phone call. But we tend to forget such times because nothing memorable occurred. One of the most insidious forms of probability error is gambler's error, the erroneous belief that previous events affect the probability in a random event. Research suggests that gambling addiction is based on gambler's error. In a study, participants were invited to think aloud while gambling. Of the verbalized perceptions, 70% were based on erroneous thinking such as, "The machine is due, I need to continue. Here is my lucky dealer. Today I feel great, it's my lucky day. It's my turn to win." These statements reveal a failure to understand the random nature of probability. When questioned about their verbalizations, non-problem gamblers realized that their beliefs were wrong. They were able to use accumulated evidence to critically evaluate and modify their perceptions. Problem gamblers, in contrast, process the evidence much differently. They believed what they had said and interpreted their occasional random wins as confirming their belief that the outcome of a game can be predicted and controlled. Self-serving bias. There are several types of self-serving bias or errors that impede our thinking, including the misperception that we are in control, the tendency to overestimate ourselves in comparison to others, the tendency to exaggerate our strengths and minimize our weaknesses. The first self-serving bias that we are going to see today is misperception that we are in control. We are predisposed to believe that we are in control of events that are outside our control. "I knew it would rain today," I groan. "I didn't bring my umbrella." Recently, the lottery jackpot reached over 100 million euros. I was standing in line at a mini-mart when I overheard the following conversation between the people in front of me who were waiting to buy lottery tickets. Person 1: "What are you going to do? Are you going to pick your own numbers or let the computer to do it for you?" Person 2: "Pick my own. It gives me a better chance of winning." People who are poor critical thinkers may fall prey to more than one error in thinking in the same situation. In this case, the control error was compounded by the probability error. Although logically we know that lottery numbers are selected randomly, many of us also believe that choosing our own numbers, especially using our lucky numbers, increases our chances of winning. In fact, 80% of winning lottery tickets have numbers randomly generated by the computer, not so-called lucky numbers picked by the winners. The belief that we are in control of situations where we actually have little or no control can contribute to irrational guilt or post-traumatic stress syndrome. A survivor of a traumatic event may believe that he or she should have been able to predict and do something to prevent an event such as sexual abuse, domestic violence, or the death of a loved one, especially an accidental or suicidal death. The second self-serving bias is the tendency to overestimate ourselves in comparison to others. Most people rate themselves as above average when it comes to getting along with other people. If we are unaware of the bias, it can become a problem and cause us not to take responsibility for our shortcomings. A Pew Research Center survey found that while 70% of Americans are overweight and that 9 in 10 agree that most of their fellow Americans are overweight, only 39 of Americans consider themselves to be overweight. Clearly, there seems to be a disconnect between being overweight and people's estimation of their own weight. Another example of the self-serving bias is that most people take personal credit for their successes and blame outside forces for their failures. College students often attribute their A grades to something about themselves, their intelligence, quick grasp of the material, or good study skills. In contrast, they usually attribute their poor grades to something outside their control, such as having an unfair teacher or having a touch of the flu on the day of the exam. Most of us are quick to complain about others' irritating behaviors, but give little thought to how our behavior might be the cause of workplace conflict. The third relative self-serving bias is our inclination to exaggerate or place a greater value on our strengths and underestimate or downplay our weaknesses. This tendency, however, can also contribute to overconfidence and failure to seek or acknowledge other people's skills. Overconfidence in doctors and jumping to a conclusion has been identified as one of the key factors in diagnostic errors. Unless we are willing, as critical thinkers, to make an honest evaluation of ourselves, it is unlikely that we are going to take steps towards overcoming our shortcomings.